Welcome to your fifth module. So I will be discussing the basic concepts under your muscular system. Let's discuss the different functions of the muscular system. So first is the movement of the body. So contraction of skeletal muscles is responsible for overall movements of the body, such as walking, running, and manipulating objects with the hands. Second function is maintenance of posture. Skeletal muscles constantly maintain tone, which keeps us sitting and standing erect. Third function is respiration. Muscles of the thorax carry out breathing movements. Further discussion on respiration will be discussed under the respiratory system module. Fourth function is production of body heat. So when skeletal muscles contract, heat is given off as a byproduct. This released heat is critical to the maintenance of your body temperature. Next function is for communication. So the muscles are involved in all aspects of communication, including speaking, writing, typing, gesturing, and facial expressions. Another is for constriction of organs and vessels. So contraction of smooth muscle within the walls of internal organs and vessels causes those structures to constrict. The constriction can help propel and mix food and water in the digestive tract, propel secretions from organs, and regulate blood flow through vessels. Finally, muscles are involved in the contraction of the heart. So the contraction of cardiac muscles causes the heart to beat, propelling blood to all parts of the body. General properties of a muscle tissue. So first is contractility, which refers to the ability of the muscle to shorten forcefully or contract. Skeletal muscle contraction causes the structures to which they are attached, such as the bone, to move. Another function is excitability. This is the capacity of the muscle to respond to an electrical stimulus. So for skeletal muscle, stimulus is from nerves that we consciously control, unlike the smooth and cardiac muscles which are contracting spontaneously. Next is extensibility. So it means that the muscle can be stretched beyond its normal resting length and still be able to contract. Last is elasticity, which refers to the ability of the muscle to spring back or recoil to its original resting length after it has been stretched. Comparison of muscle types. So we have three different muscle types. We have skeletal, smooth, and cardiac muscles. So in comparing these muscle types, we'll only focus on these three aspects: location, control, and function. So for the skeletal muscle, these are the muscles that are attached to the bones. These are voluntary and involuntary and is responsible for body movement. Smooth muscles are found in the walls of hollow organs, blood vessels, eyes, glands, and skin. And again, smooth muscles are involuntary. These are responsible for moving food through the digestive tract, emptying the urinary bladder, etc. Final muscle type is your cardiac muscle. So this is the main muscle of the heart. Okay? The cardiac muscles are involuntary and functions to pump blood. Contractions provide the major force for propelling blood through blood vessels. Skeletal muscle anatomy. Connective tissue coverings. So a muscle is composed of numerous visible bundles called muscle fascicles. So we have three tissue coverings. First is your epimysium, which covers each skeletal muscle. Next is the perimysium, which separates muscle fascicles from each other. And last is the endomysium, which surrounds each muscle fiber. Nerves and blood vessels of a muscle tissue. So a muscle has a rich supply of blood vessels and nerves. A skeletal muscle fiber do not contract unless they are stimulated by a motor neuron. So a motor neuron or an afferent neuron are specialized nerve cells that stimulates muscle to contract. Motor neurons generate action potentials that travel to the skeletal muscle fiber. So each muscle is in contact with a motor neuron. So let's discuss the skeletal muscle fiber anatomy. So first, we have the sarcomeres. So a sarcomere is the basic structural and functional unit of skeletal muscle because it is the smallest portion of skeletal muscle capable of contracting. Actin and myosin myofilament structure. So myofilaments are key molecular regulators of the contraction of a muscle tissue. So an actin myofilament is composed of two actins. We have two fibers, F-actin, your tropomyosin and troponin, and the other one is your globular actin. Myosin myofilament is composed of many elongated myosin molecules. So in this image, you can see a relaxed and fully contracted sarcomere. So in your relaxed state, okay, the myofilaments overlap slightly and they are not pulled towards the center. In a fully contracted sarcomere, myofilaments are pulled towards the center and they overlap at the same time. So that is how a muscle tissue contracts. Neuromuscular junction structure. So from the name itself, neuromuscular, this is the junction site of a neuron and a muscle tissue. So the primary neurotransmitter responsible for muscle contractions are your acetylcholine. So acetylcholine is released from the neuron, okay, from the presynaptic terminals. It then allows sodium ions to enter postsynaptic cells, which then causes your action potential. Excitability of muscle fibers. So before we proceed to the action potential, let us first understand what a resting membrane potential is. So resting membrane potential basically refers to a neuron at rest. So at resting period, there are principles that you need to remember. So the concentration of potassium inside the plasma membrane is higher than that outside the plasma membrane. Second, the concentration of sodium outside the plasma membrane is higher than that inside the plasma membrane. And last, the plasma membrane is more permeable to potassium than sodium. So any changes in the concentration of these ions will cause your action potential. So always remember PISO. Okay, again, remember potassium inside and sodium outside. This refers to the concentration of ions in and outside a neuron. So in action potential, there is a reversal of resting membrane potential. So inside of the plasma membrane becomes positively charged compared with the outside. So there are two phases under action potential. First is depolarization, which the inside of the cell becomes positively charged. And the other one is repolarization, which is the return of the membrane to its resting value. In a resting membrane potential, always remember that the outside of the cell is positively charged while the inside of the cell is negatively charged. Depolarization. So this is what we refer to as your action potential. So in this state, sodium channels are now open. So sodium diffuses down its concentration gradient, making the inside of the cell membrane positively charged compared to the outside. So after depolarization, repolarization occurs. So this is the movement of potassium outside the cell, making the inside of the cell membrane negatively charged compared to the outside, and once again returns to its resting membrane potential. So in this image, this is a neuromuscular junction site. Okay, here the transfer of action potential from the neuron towards a muscle tissue is being shown. So once an action potential reaches the presynaptic terminal, it releases your acetylcholine, which is the primary neurotransmitter responsible for muscle contraction. Again, your acetylcholine is the one that is responsible for making sodium ions go inside a muscle tissue. So once sodium ions goes inside the muscle tissue, it then causes your depolarization or your action potential, which is now then the transfer of action potential from the neuron towards the muscle tissue. Now, once action potential is generated on the muscle tissue, that is the stimulus that causes it to contract. Now, this is just an image on how action potential is being distributed on a muscle fiber. Again, once depolarization or action potential reaches a muscle tissue, that becomes now the stimulus for a sarcomere to contract. So after any muscle contraction, muscle relaxation follows. So this occurs when acetylcholine is no longer released at the neuromuscular junction. So obviously, if acetylcholine is being inhibited, the transfer of action potential from a neuron towards a muscle tissue is also inhibited. Thus, muscle relaxation occurs. Let's discuss the two types of muscle contraction. First is isometric contraction. So in this contraction, the length of the muscle does not change, but the amount of tension increases during contraction. So this is responsible for the constant length of the postural muscles of the body. Second type of muscle contraction is your isotonic contraction. In here, the amount of tension produced by the muscle is constant during contraction, but the length of the muscle changes. Under this isotonic contraction are your concentric and eccentric contraction. In concentric contraction, the tension in the muscle is great enough to overcome the opposing resistance and the muscle shortens, while in your eccentric contraction, tension is maintained in the muscle but the opposing resistance is great enough to cause the muscle to increase in length. Muscle fiber types. So we have the slow twitch and the fast twitch muscle fiber. So again, their names basically corresponds on how fast or slow they respond to a nervous stimulation. So for your slow twitch muscle fibers or your type 1, it contracts more slowly, have a better developed blood supply, have more mitochondria, it's more fatigue resistant, and aerobic respiration is the primary source for ATP synthesis. While your fast twitch muscle fiber or your type 2 respond rapidly to nervous stimulation and they tend to contract rapidly for a shorter time and fatigue relatively quickly. Effects of exercise on a muscle tissue. So first, muscle fibers can be converted to muscle fibers of other type through specialized training. So doing regular exercise causes an increase in muscle size. We refer to that one as your hypertrophy, and it can also cause an increase in strength and endurance. Another effect would be an increase in the size and capacity of muscle fibers so that they perform more efficiently. Example would be doing an intense exercise such as sprinting. Okay, it utilizes your anaerobic respiration. So this enlarges fast twitch muscle fibers. In doing aerobic exercises such as jogging, it enlarges your slow twitch muscle fibers. Energy sources for muscle contraction. So basically we have two sources. We have aerobic and anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration is the production of ATP with the use of oxygen. So this is used during most exercise and in normal conditions. The second source of energy is through anaerobic respiration, which is the production of ATP without the use of oxygen. So this is utilized during intensive exercises and this is also short term. Okay, as easy as it sounds, this is by far probably the most complicated concept I have to understand in the anatomy and physiology, but let's just keep it simple. Okay. Aerobic respiration occurs mostly in the mitochondria. Again, it requires oxygen and breaks down glucose to produce ATP, carbon dioxide, and water. So in aerobic respiration, this can process lipids and amino acids to make ATP. While in your anaerobic respiration, again, it does not require oxygen. It breaks down glucose to produce ATP and lactate. So in this image, you can see a diagram on how ATP is being produced while the body is at rest and while the body is on an exercise. Muscle fatigue. So fatigue is a temporary state of reduced work capacity. It is a mechanism to prevent structural damage on muscle tissues and their supportive tissues. So we have multiple mechanisms underlying muscular fatigue. First is that acidosis and ATP depletion due to either an increase in ATP consumption or a decreased ATP production. Another cause is that because of oxidative stress. So it is characterized by the buildup of excessive reactive oxygen species such as your ROS or your free radicals. Last mechanism is your local inflammatory system. Types of fatigue. So first, we have psychological fatigue, and this is the most common type of fatigue. It involves the central nervous system rather than the muscles. So in this kind of fatigue, muscles are still capable of contracting, but the individual perceives that continued muscle contraction is impossible. Another type of fatigue is your muscular fatigue. So this is due to a depletion of ATP within the muscle fibers. So there are no more energy sources. That's why the muscle is not able to contract. Another type is your synaptic fatigue. So this is due to depletion of neurotransmitter vesicles in the presynaptic terminals. Again, without your ACH or your acetylcholine, it would be impossible for a muscle to contract. Effects on aging on skeletal muscles. So first, we have muscle atrophy or your sarcopenia. This is an age-related reduction in muscle mass and regulation of muscle function. So in an aging skeletal muscle, these are the effects. There is a reduce in muscle mass, an increased time to contract in response to nervous stimuli. There is reduced stamina. Then there is increased recovery time once there is damage. Surface area of neuromuscular junction decreases, results in fewer action potentials being produced, and the number of motor neurons decreases. So age-related changes can be slowed down if people remain physically active instead of assuming a sedentary lifestyle.